Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1195A, and today's date is February 3rd, 2017, and the title of the episode is Utah Getting Ready to Dump the Fed Dollar and Make Gold and Silver Legal Tender. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we see the job numbers came out, and we see the corporate media and Trump. First of all, the corporate media is out there saying that, these aren't really Trump numbers. These are leftover from Obama. Trump is saying these are his numbers, and look how great they are. And when you really look at the data, there's nothing great here. I mean, both the president, the corporate media, and Obama, they can slug it out and say, yes, these are my numbers. But when we really look at the data and we cut through all the junk that they give us, we can see that unemployment right now is not that great. And we knew this from years and years ago, where it is completely manipulated. Now, the BLS came out and they said that there were 227,000 jobs that were added in January, far above the 175,000 expected, and in line with the ADP numbers. Now, what we're seeing here is that these full-time jobs, well, they increased. At the same time, part-time jobs, they tumbled. So we had full-time jobs increased by 457,000. Part-time jobs tumbled to 490,000. And we can see right now, when we look at this, we say, oh, wow, everyone's hiring full-time. It looks fantastic. Everything's great. But things, again, don't make sense with the job numbers. Retail jobs, well, they rose by 46,000 in January and 229,000 in 2016, which is very odd because we've had a lot of stores declare bankruptcy, a lot of stores closed stores, a lot of individuals in retail got laid off, and they're trying to convince us that jobs were added. They're saying clothing and clothing or accessory stores added 18,000 jobs. Electronics and appliance stores added 8,000. Furniture and home furnishing stores added 6,000. And of course, everything that we've been looking at, this still doesn't make sense. It looks like they're up to their old tricks. Construction is down. New home sales are down. Construction jobs rose by 36,000. So when we look at this, again, something doesn't make sense. Now, when we look at the labor force, we see that there was a plunge of about 736,000 people. So when we look at this, we see that 736,000, this is the biggest drop in the series throughout the history, which brings the number of Americans not in the labor force to 94,366,000. And when we look at this, we see that the labor participation rate rose from 62.7 to 62.9, the highest print since September. Now, all of a sudden, everyone just found jobs. Now, the economy didn't change. The debt level didn't change. GDP is worse than ever. The only thing that has been going up is the stock market. Yes, Trump has made these promises with other companies that they're going to be bringing jobs back, but nothing has been done as of yet. So when we look at these job numbers, what do we see? Well, in the last 3 months, employment has only risen by a grand total of 33,000. Employment in January declined by 30,000. For the entire year, employment rose by only 1.5 million. The average increase from a year ago is only 129,000 per month. And the media is going crazy over the Beat the Street headline of 227,000 jobs. Now, last month, the BLS revised November employment to 204,000 from 178. This month, the BLS revised November from 204 to 164,000. In the past 2 months, the BLS revised October lower each month from 161 to 142 to 135. The BLS revised October a third time to 124. This month, the BLS revised September up from 208 to 249. So if you start counting all the people who want a job but gave up, all the people with part-time jobs that want a full-time job, all the people who dropped off the unemployment rolls because their unemployment benefits ran out, you get a closer picture of what the unemployment rate is. The number is in the last row labeled U6. U6 is much higher at 9.4%. Both numbers would be way higher still if it were not for millions of people dropping out of the labor force over the past few years, which actually, if you recalculate that brings us up to like 23%. So let's put the job numbers into proper perspective. In the household survey, if you work as little as 1 hour a week, guess what? You're employed. So if you're selling something on eBay or any other site, and you sell one thing and you work 1 hour, you're employed. If you work 3 part-time jobs, 12 hours each, you are a full-time employee. If the payroll survey, 3 part-time jobs count as 3 jobs. The BLS attempts to factor this in, but they do not weed out duplicate Social Security numbers. So they're double counting jobs in the payroll survey. Now we have the household survey versus the payroll survey. The payroll survey is the headline jobs number, generally released the first Friday of every month. It's based on employer reporting. The household survey is a phone survey conducted by the BLS. It measures unemployment and many other factors. So when we look at this, we can see how they can skew these numbers. Because if we take what we just talked about, working 1 hour, and they're asking it on a survey, you can see how the BLS can say, oh, okay, look, we have a higher number of people that are employed. And there's a lot of distortions in this. So when we really look at all these job numbers, we see that employment growth is around 129,000 on average from a year ago, 79,000 per month since March, and only 11,000 per month for the last 3 months. What we're looking at is that employment actually has stalled. So they can be patting themselves on the back saying, wow, this is incredible. It really isn't. And by the way, the unemployment rate has gone up to 4.8%. And like I said, what's going to happen over time here is all these numbers are going to start rising because they need to start building the case that Trump and whatever he's doing right now is not working unless he takes control of the manipulation and manipulates these numbers lower. Because remember, there is a fight going on right now of who is going to get the blame for the economy coming down. Now, while all this is happening and all these job numbers are out there, we see Deutsche Bank right now, well, they're getting ready to cut as much as 17% of staff in their equities unit and the reduced fixed income headcount. This is going to be a lot of people. There's going to be about 9,000 jobs across the company, maybe even more. There's a lot of people that are going to be let go. And you know, once they give this number, you know it always goes higher. We see that U.S. factory orders in December, well, they're almost exactly the same as they were in March 2006, unchanged in 11 years. And when we look at the trend, the 24-month trend, it is very clear and historically implied that one thing is true about all of this. We are in a recession. And we can see right now that there are many economic indicators that have been flashing recession/depression. Actually, we've been in a recession. Actually, we're heading into a depression because we've been in a recession quite a while right now. Again, the government, the corporate media, they're not going to recognize this until much later on. They're going to go back in time and say, yes, the recession started in February of 2016 or March of 2016. But they won't do this until most likely the end of 2017 when they start telling you how everything had happened. We see Trump right now, well, he signed the executive order rolling back Dodd-Frank. Is this a good thing? I don't know as of yet, because we can see right now that is Trump might be working for the banking system, allowing the banks to have more flexibility. And we have to understand that, Trump began the process of undoing Dodd-Frank most likely with the help of Goldman bankers, because Goldman bankers are on his staff. And he hasn't mentioned anything about Glass-Steagall. And that is one law that would truly protect depositors from runaway banker greed. And this is something that needs to be put back into place, because as we can see, that was removed and allowed the banks to do whatever they wanted in regards to investments. Out in Utah, there was a bill introduced into the Utah legislature, and it would bring on the state's Legal Tender Act, creating a foundation for further action to encourage the use of gold and silver as money, and take another step toward breaking the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. So Utah is saying, listen, we're setting this up so we can actually dump the Fed dollar bill. We can bypass it. Representative Ken Ivory introduced House Bill 224 on January 27th. The legislation would add several provisions to state law designed to encourage the use of gold and silver as legal tender. And the passage, well, it would set the stage for expansion of gold repositories in the state. And what does that mean? Well, it means that people would be able to use gold and silver to purchase things. They can put it in the bank and hold it, and they wouldn't have to use the Fed dollar. And this is something that states are allowed to do. Now, states haven't done this, but they do have the right to do this, because when you look at the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payments of debts. States have simply ignored this constitutional provision for years. It's impossible for states to return to a constitutional sound money system when it taxes gold and silver as a commodity. So they can definitely go ahead and do this, and it bypasses the Federal Reserve completely. Now, we know that Texas, well, they set up a gold bullion depository. Governor Greg Abbott signed legislation back in June of 2015, which set this up. And this is a facility that would provide a secure place for individuals, businesses, cities, counties, government, the rest, to store gold and other precious metals. Now, according to the HB 224, this would also allow repositories to be set up and have special recognition by the state. That would likely expand the market for their services. So we can see we're already moving in this direction where states are saying, you know something, we're done with the central banking system. We can have our own legal tender. It is gold and silver. Under the Constitution, the states do have the right to do this. And we see already Texas, we see now Utah, and most likely this will spread from state to state to state. Now, of course, the central bankers are not going to like this. The central bankers are going to look at this as a threat, and most likely they're going to do whatever they possibly can to stop this. Because remember, their system is controlling countries. It's putting them into debt. They want you to use paper and ink. They don't want you to think of gold and silver as money. It's just for jewelry. It's just for, for building electronics and things like that. But it's not really money. The paper and ink that we create of thin air, that's money. And we know it's not. There's no reason to have a central bank. There's no benefit to a central bank, especially a private central bank that doesn't act in the interest of the people of the country, which charges interest on creating currency out of thin air. There's no reason to have it. Every government can create their own. I mean, the United States, they print treasury bills, no problem. Guess what? They can create currency. They don't need the central bank. And you have to wonder, Why do Congress, why does the president, why do all these individuals even keep the central bank operational? What benefit are they giving the people? The only reason they're operational is because they're giving some type of kickback to all these individuals. I mean, think about it. The Fed doesn't even want to be audited. They keep fighting it. And that should tell you something right there. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.